Hey everyone, it's Strange Michael. I hope you're doing well today. As I said in my previous couple of videos, over the last couple of days, I think I uploaded those a few days ago, I meant to get around to doing my Halloween movie ranking videos. I just never got around to it. Kept forgetting, and then I would remember, and then I wouldn't have the time to do it while I remembered, and so on and so on, as adulthood goes. As you guys know, if you're a content creator, married, possibly have kids, whatever you have going on, if you're on YouTube, you probably know how life will kick your feet out sometimes. Anyway, so here I am doing, out of the 3 or 4 Halloween-themed videos I'm going to do, you know, at Thanksgiving time. Thanksgiving's next week. Hope you have a great Thanksgiving. I'm sorry for being late on this. I'm going to do a couple of other videos also. I'm going to do a ranking for all of the Halloween soundtracks. I'm also going to do another video for all of the Michael Myers in a ranking video. So for right now, we're just going to talk about the movies from worst to best, in my opinion. Now mind you, in my list here, I have 14 movies because I'm also separating Halloween 6 into the producer's cut and the theatrical cut like most fans typically do. I don't see a whole lot of my friends doing that on their lists, but it is what it is. I figured it'd be worthwhile for me because to me, Halloween 6 is 2 completely different films depending on what we're talking about, what the context is. Certain moments people mix up between the two. People hate the theatrical cut, therefore they take really worse things from the producer's cut and insert them into the theatrical cut. I had a couple of friends I was talking about this recently with named Parker and Anthony. Anyways, so the Halloween list here, I do have 14 here. Even though the Halloween franchise really only has 13 movies, I am doing 14, like I said. So let's get into it. What is for me, the absolute worst one of the franchise? Well, for me, it kind of jumped around a lot. I wanted to let you know first and foremost, my video will not be the same as everybody else's. Now, this has kind of become the gamer girl mentality of a lot of people saying nowadays, like, my Halloween list isn't like anybody else's list. All of us keep saying that all the time. To be fair, I have very weird tastes in movies. There are going to be some in here that you would never expect in a million years to be up so high, some that used to be really high that got lowered down. I'll talk about that when they happen. And of course, recently we had Halloween Ends come out, which is included in this list. So that's effective quite a bit. Many of you probably already know my feelings because I did a review on that. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into what I think is the worst movie of the entire Halloween franchise as of right now, because my mind jumps around a lot. This film, for me, is kind of well made. Kind of, sometimes, but most of it is horribly written, most of it is a wasted potential, and that movie is the 2007 remake from Rob Zombie, Halloween. Now I'm talking about, this is a situation too, a lot of people might wonder why I'm not separating the unrated and the theatrical cuts of something like this. Well, to me, they're not that different, frankly. I watched the theatrical cut this time around. I do own that on another DVD copy with the theatrical cut of Halloween 2, and I watched that this year, even though I've mainly watched this one. And I will tell you, there's not a big difference between the unrated cut of this movie and the theatrical cut of this movie. So, I consider this one regular old movie. Halloween's 2007 remake has a great poster, as you can see. The other poster's really great, too. But there's so much wrong here. Really, the only 2 things I like about the film, and not so much in this movie, but more so in the next film, is Scout Taylor Compton, who I think improves in the next film. Brad Dourif is also in here, by the way. He's much better in H2 than he is here. He's kind of underutilized here. I think Rob Zombie learned from that lesson. But also, the third thing I just remembered, Tyler Mane, who played Michael Myers, probably one of the best Michael Myers of all time. Love the guy. Really great, really menacing, really scary, and most of this film doesn't even spend its time on him, which is an absolute mistake. To me, this movie should have never happened. I know Resurrection pissed a lot of fans off, but I'll be honest with you, I'd rather have a sequel like Halloween 9 Retribution, the script that's floated around there forever on the internet. I read that, most of it, recently, and it's really solid. I don't hate it the way I would most things, and I think what they did with Busta Rhymes in that movie was going to be even better. I think a lot of people would have felt better about how it tied to H2O and whatever. Instead of this crap we got, which is a giant mess, Halloween 2007 is the worst, in my opinion, of the entire franchise. I don't care how poorly made they are. I don't care how things like Halloween 5 had Michael Myers crying. None of that, to me, comes as close as to what this film did, turning Michael's whole life and whole story and everybody's story surrounding him, even his victims, into just white trash hillbillies. I can't stand it in real life, I can't stand it here. So, moving along to the next one on the list. We have... I dropped my phone. Let me grab that real quick. Alright, number 13 on my list is, as I mentioned, Halloween 5. This film came out in 1989. And it's awful. It's truly awful. It's one of the worst of the entire franchise. I would say that, again, Michael Myers cries in the movie, which is gut-wrenching as a fan because we got to see one of the greatest serial killers of all time, the guy who basically started the slasher craze. Not the subgenre, but the craze that happened throughout the 80s. And at the end of the 80s, this happened to him. It's kind of a shame because at this point I liked, up until 5, pretty much every film. Even though Halloween 4 is kind of weak, I really love 1, 2, and 3. But 4 is good. And then you get this, and everything that could possibly be done wrong between Jamie's character, Rachel's character, everybody's character in general is ruined because of this movie. Even down to Loomis, how goofy and insane he became in this movie. It's just too much. Not that it was Donald Pleasance's fault, just everything else that came with it was a giant misstep, like Rob Zombie's Halloween. Moving along to my number 12 pick, which is Halloween 6 Producer's Cut, which technically is a 1995 movie. I have the Blu-ray here. I don't remember when this came out. I think it was like 2015, 2016, somewhere in there. I saw this on Blu-ray for the first time, even though I went into it knowing what people said about it. I know a lot of fans prefer this over the theatrical cut. I am not one of those people. I very much like the theatrical cut quite a bit. This movie, for me, the producer's cut, is such a shame. It's such a shame. Really, the only benefit it has in some way, fashion, or form, a lot of people really like the music better. It pretty much took the original movie's music from the John Carpenter 1978 classic and put it on this film. There's some other things like kills that are downgraded so much, like a head explosion that's taken out of the film. It's not in this version. There's a whole Cult of Thorn thing we all know about. That's its own problem, but let me tell you this much. The Cult of Thorn thing and what they do with Michael as a character, even with the twists they throw about him, with the ending of the movie and what they do with him, I hate all of it. I think all of it's bad. I think it's just genuinely one of those films that I just can't stand. Now, I love Kara. I think her name is Kara, right? The main character girl that's a single mom. I like her. I like the mom from Better Off Dead. I like so many things about this film. I like the brother. I like so many things about this movie. It looks solid for the most part. And this cold mysticism stuff ruins not only Michael, but ruins this movie more than what I think the theatrical cut did because of the cult stuff in that movie. Anyway, I hate this version. I think it's awful. I think Rob Zombie's film has nothing going for it until the third act. I think Halloween 5 really doesn't have much aside from the feel of a slasher. This one gets a lot of things right, but a lot of things wrong, but I mostly hate it. If this had been the release, the official release of Halloween 6 in the theaters, you talk about the franchise dying until H2O, I will tell you, this would have killed it. I don't think it would have ever revived, ever again. I think it would have been dead, like fully dead at the end of this movie if this had been the original Halloween 6 release. Anyway, poor Paul Rudd. I can only imagine what went through his head when he was involved with this. So moving along to the next one here, which a lot of people are probably surprised this is not at the bottom. This seems to be people's most hated version. Maybe even Scream Factory's, because the version I have is the most embarrassing cover I've ever seen in my life. That number 11 pick would be Halloween Resurrection, which I forgot to put the date of when this one came out. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Michael Myers looks on this picture like he's about to T-pose or he's about to hug you. Like he's coming in for the first parts of a hug, you know? Look at that. That's awful. These covers are beautiful, but this is the worst cover from the Scream Factory 4K releases. I'm not even a 4K collector. I bought all of these because I love this look of these movies, and I wanted all the covers too. And all the bonus features. That's really cool, too. Anyway, Halloween Resurrection is a film that I have a guilty conscience over, mainly because I grew up watching this a lot. Now, let me be frank with you. If you had cable in the mid-2000s or the 2010s, if you had Sci-Fi Channel, they and AMC played this film, and Halloween 1, 1978, they played both of these so much that if you were a younger person that was into horror, this is probably, in my opinion, in my case, really, this is probably my second most watched Halloween film of all time, behind 1978, because it was on TV. I was too young to really have my own developed taste, what I think are objectively good movies or objectively bad, and I watched this so much. I genuinely enjoyed it growing up, and even now when I watch it, I have moments about it that I like, but there are giant problems with this movie, like Busta Rhymes, which was a horrible, horrible situation to put in this. As a franchise, as a movie, it kills it. The film feels so much cheaper after H2O, and to me it ruins H2O, because H2O to me is the best timeline to go. My friend Anthony made a really good point the other day too. His Halloween series or trilogy is 1, 2, and then H2O. That's kind of how I feel too. I think that H2O is a better movie than 2018. I think it's better than the whole David Gordon Green trilogy. Better than the Rob Zombie films for sure. A lot of stuff like that. But I will tell you this. I think this film, I know it had Jamie Lee Curtis, locked into a contract to make another sequel if H2O was such a big success, which it was. But the ending of that film was completely butchered and just ruined, like I said, because of this movie. And it's a shame. And they even had Rick Rosenthal come back to direct this, the guy who did Halloween 2. How he fell so far from the tree is upsetting. Now, the webcam stuff a lot of people hate. I don't really mind that. I think it's actually a cool idea. If you watch the thing that's included on this set that I never knew about, it's called like the webcam special or whatever. They actually filmed on the webcams throughout making this movie, and you could watch, apparently back in the day, the entire webcam special online with this movie or whatever. And the thing that was neat about that, it was kind of like an experimental Michael Myers found footage movie. It really is, and if you haven't seen it before, you should go take out the time to check this out. This is after Blair Witch Project. I think Blair Witch Project inspired this film to go this route, which was a terrible idea, but still, it's one of those things where this doesn't work as well for Michael as it would with Jason Voorhees. The movie itself doesn't go into the whole, let's try to feel like a found footage Blair Witch Project ripoff type of thing. The webcam special does, which is its own like 45-minute long thing. Anyway, the film itself is a mess. I don't really have much good to say about it. I have moments that I love because of nostalgia, but that objectively, especially the acting objectively, is not good. It's not. There are people in here like Katie Sackhoff that I can't stand Katie Sackhoff. I'm sorry. It's nothing personal against her. Maybe she's nice in real life, but everything I've ever seen her in, I just don't like her. I'm not impressed with her. I'm sorry. I'm not. But the movie itself, with Busta Rhymes, the goofy humor, so many things about this it gets wrong. I still like it more than Halloween 5. I don't know how the hell anyone could like Halloween 5 more than this. At least there's things like decapitations, there's no Tina. There's all those problems in Halloween 5 that are not here that I prefer way more. I would watch Halloween Resurrection more than I would ever watch the producer's cut. I already have. But same thing with the other ones I mentioned before, this like Rob Zombie's film, even though I've seen that quite a bit too. Moving along, though, to the next film on the list. This one I don't have a DVD or a VHS or a Blu-ray of right now, because it just came out. Halloween Ends is number 10 on my list. I hate that fucking movie. I mean it deeply when I say that I hate Halloween Ends. Now, mind you, I think it's well made. I like the character stories. I like Corey. I like Allison even more than I've ever liked her. But they take other characters, like Jamie, like Lindsay. They do the worst kinds of things they could ever do with them, particularly with Jamie Lee Curtis. They take her and they do so many things with her, and it's like they completely reversed her whole character as a person. I don't know what happened here. I get the trying to feel like an anthological piece of the franchise, but you don't end a trilogy that you advertised as a Michael versus Laurie thing. You advertised that. You don't do that with the movie you advertised. I don't understand where Hollywood and, like, even the critics are on the same page as us as fans about this movie. That should tell you everything you need to know. Really, the only people defending this are Redditors and shills. And I love Reddit, and I don't love shills, but you know what I mean. You try to understand, and I've even tried to sit down and listen to, like, Red Letter Media, or, like, the Skeleton Crew, who I love deeply. I love both of those groups so much. I've listened to them forever now. Trying to sit down and listen to them explain why they think this movie is good. I want to have my mind changed. I mean that. And I love the soundtrack in this film. But that's not enough to make up for all the problems in it. All the stupidity that was thrown into this shit that ruins this movie. It's still an open wound for me. A lot of my friends at work and I have trashed this movie so much, including my boss. We've both joked about this forever. I remember the opening weekend when this thing came out. I came back to work on Monday, and he looked at me and was like, why? He hadn't seen 2018, he hadn't seen Kills. He watched this just as a standalone, as all of these people pretend like it needs to be seen as. and he hated it. So there you go. There you go. You lose. Anyway, Halloween Ends is a giant mess. I think it's a horribly, horribly done execution of a concept that people thought would work out, and it did not work. It does not work for Michael. It doesn't work for Corey. It doesn't work for anybody in this film. But the love story concept here and the stealing of Christine from John Carpenter or from Stephen King. I like John Carpenter's Christine more than I like Stephen King's Christine, just saying. The fact that they're stealing so much from that and pulling it into here, all the influences of John Carpenter into here, like his version of The Thing plays in this movie. All of that stuff is a love letter to John Carpenter rather than the Halloween franchise. To me, it's sad, but I also like that stuff. The theories that the fans had, like the Radio Tower theory or the Silver Shamrock theory, would have been better than what this movie was. And I wanted those things to happen. I would have been totally down for that stuff. It wouldn't have made sense, but I would have taken it. I would have enjoyed that a lot more than what I got with this movie. This is an insult. I'm sorry. It's a flat-out insult. It is nowhere as bad as the previous films I mentioned. It's a well-acted film. It's well-performed. It's well-shot, even. But the concept of the story, it feels like one of those Rian Johnson attempts to piss the fans off and deliberately make you get gaslit like you're the problem here. No, asshole. You advertised a completely different film. You need to get over it, get off your little horse or whatever, and stop pretending like you didn't lie to everybody. This is what made people so mad. Halloween 3, say what you will about it, but it has earned its fans over the years very much, and I think people like myself really came around to that film and really love that film more than most of these movies. I would say it's probably even most of the well-made. I don't know if it's the top of my list yet, but I actually haven't been over the list in a while, but I took a quick glance over it and thought it looked good. But you can't compare this shit to Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Let me say that again. You cannot compare Halloween Ends to Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. That's bullshit, and if they take it in an anthology series after this, that would be fine. But do it right. You piss the fans off so much, and even the normies off so much. I would not be surprised if they don't come around for this. Now, I know Halloween Kills divided a lot of the audience for stupid reasons, in my opinion. I think a lot of people were really unfair to that film. But the fact that people were as unfair to that film as they were really shows me who's an actual slasher fan and who's not. Because all the gore, the craziness, the Michael moments that we had in Kills, we don't get it here. And it feels like a knee-jerk reaction to the audience reaction of Halloween Kills. That's what it feels like to me. And Halloween Ends, you can say whatever you want. But the box office, the film's reactions, the critics' reactions, the audience reactions, all of that predicts to me that it fell flat on its face. It crushed its own nose. I don't care what anybody says, Halloween Ends was a horrible misstep for this new trilogy that I myself found myself being a massive fan of. For you folks out there who enjoy it, I'm really happy for you. I could not be more disappointed. My mom, who's been a massive Halloween fan since the 80s, wanted to turn this off about halfway through because she hated it deeply too. Yeah, she likes pretty much all of these, so, you know, it's a shame. It's a shame is what I'm trying to tell you. Anyway, let's move along to my number 9 pick. My number 9 pick is actually the previous movie, Halloween Kills, from 2021. I love this flick. I think there's so many good things in here. It's not perfect by any means, has some goofy moments in it, but it's a Halloween movie. It's a horror film. It's a slasher movie. You're gonna have goofy things in there. This is, in a lot of ways, with the writing at least, I think an improvement over Halloween 2018, but I like Halloween 2018 more than I like this movie. The stuff like the firefighter scene is one of the most iconic things ever done on Halloween to this day. In the franchise, I would say. It's one of the best moments ever. A little rushed, but for the most part, it's fantastic with the burning house in the background. You know what I'm talking about. The gore in this film is fantastic. Tommy Doyle being in this film, played by the fella from, God, what is his name? Oh well, it doesn't matter. The guy from The Dead Zone and the guy from Breakfast Club. I like him here. He's a little bit different than what I'd expect Tommy Doyle to grow up into, but I don't hate him here. Lindsay Wallace is in here. The nurse from the original film is in here. There's so many great characters in here, so many goofy moments in here. Things that make logical sense to me, being a massive fan of this franchise. I get why certain things are happening. There's a subplot in here people hate about people thinking this kind of one guy who appeared in Halloween 2018, who's also a patient with Michael at the 2018 film's asylum. People don't understand in real life, like in our reality, why people would think that he might be Michael Myers, because he apparently doesn't look like him. Well, the TV news station broadcast at one time. This takes place the same night as Halloween 2018. The news broadcast had just released what Michael looked like, but that big, enormous dude that was running around from everybody, the Penguin, that guy that was running away, people wouldn't automatically know. Like, the crowd itself, the mob itself, would not automatically know that that's not Michael. They don't know the Michael that we know. They don't know that he's a skinnier guy with a missing eye. They don't know all of that. They don't get close enough to him to be able to really say that, aside from the people who are in the front rows of the hospital who kind of went into panic mode but kind of didn't. All of that stuff. People hate this movie unfairly. I will argue that till the day I die. And this is a better film than Halloween Kills. Or Halloween Ends, excuse me. I say that, I always mean it. Halloween Ends has some good stuff in there with a love story. I really like that. I like the Christine references. But that movie's a mess. Halloween Kills is a slight mess, just a little bit. It has its problems, but for the most part, I really like it. And I think it really gave fans what they wanted of a brutal, brutal Michael Myers movie. And everybody was looking forward to this in 2020, and then it got delayed by a year. That sucked so bad. I remember what that was like. And then you see what happened this year with Halloween Ends. Moving along to my next pick. Let's talk about number 8. That is Halloween 4, 1988. I've never been a massive fan of this film. I liked it more when I was younger. The film is good. The film is solid. It's fun. It was a good kind of soft reboot. It's called The Return of Michael Myers because Halloween 3 did not have Michael Myers in it, of course. It was a standalone movie trying to spin off an anthology out of the series. Halloween 4 doesn't have John Carpenter, involved with it. The look of Michael's kind of weak. There's a lot of problems with this movie, but you have some great pluses. You have Rachel, you have Jamie. Danielle Harris is amazing in this. She's a better child actor than she is an adult actress, even though I still like her as an adult actress for horror films. She's just really good. Everybody that could be good in this is good. They take a lot of hints from the original 78 movie. If someone told me, like my mom, for example, that she thinks this is the best or like up in the top 3 for her or whatever, I would get it. There's a lot of fans out there who love Halloween 4. I'm not a massive fan of it, but I do like it. I do appreciate what it tried to do to bring the franchise back. But man, that lasted like all of a couple of years, and then 5 killed it for a little bit of time. The Return of Michael Myers, really solid flick. I really don't have much to say about it. I wish it was a bloodier movie. It has probably more gore than the rest of the franchise up to this point, except for 3. But it definitely has more than 1. It has quite a bit more than 2 in my opinion. But I wish it had more. Does that make sense? I really think it needed that. Anyway, moving along to the next pick on my list, just because I don't have a whole lot to say about Halloween 4. Number 7 is Halloween 2018. I really like the flick. I think it's a really solid flick with a lot of good things to love about it. Yes, I love that Halloween Kills is way more gory than this movie, but this movie has some scary stuff in it, like the mannequin scene, like the teeth scene, that all of us were talking about the teeth scene when the trailer first came out. I don't think people remember that there were people out there that were talking about this movie before it even came out, like the trailer and stuff. We were all so excited. You had, what's-his-face from, God, what is his name? The fella from Lord of the Rings. Frodo. Anyway, Frodo was complaining all over Twitter about when the trailer was finally going to come out. You haven't heard a fucking word from him about Halloween Ends or Halloween Kills, which I think is crazy and wild and seems like a marketing ploy to me. Anyway, I really like Halloween 2018. Yes, I wish it was called something else other than just Halloween. And technically this trilogy is really a quadrilogy because it includes 1978 to basically look back and say, we're not going to acknowledge anything except for the original movie. That's kind of a misstep in my opinion, but I get why they did it. They wanted to try something new with a new idea. It's fine. It's technically H40. Instead of H2O, you have H4O here. And it's solid. It's very well made. It's probably the best, most well made of the whole franchise for David Gordon Green's movies. I think it's very well shot. It has some good stuff. I like that Laurie is kind of a homebody type that just kind of stuck to herself, started buying a lot of guns, that kind of stuff to protect herself. Excuse me. And I love Allison. I think Allison's great. She doesn't have a whole lot to do here compared to the other movies, especially Ends. I think she's really good in Ends. But there's so much to appreciate here. Jai-Ju Courtney is one of the best looking Michaels of all time. Starting here, kind of carried into Kills, kind of carried into, well, maybe not Halloween Ends. Not going to go there. But 2018 has so many benefits to it. So many things that I love about it. I feel like the more that I've seen it over the years, I watch it like once a year. I feel like the more that I've watched it since it came out 5 years ago. Yeah, this has been out for 5 years, dude. It's kind of crazy to me that the ending of the film with like the door closings and stuff inside of the house, that stuff for me doesn't land as good as it did when I first saw the movie. I'm not really sure why. Maybe it feels a little too technology based or something for Laurie. I don't know. I feel like we kind of had something that should have felt close to a found footage movie out in the woods. Even though, like I said earlier, it might not work as well for Michael as it would somebody else, like Jason. But I think it could have been pretty solid. I think it could have worked pretty well for this movie to have a better ending than that. I get what they were trying to do. I get the trap thing, I get all that. But it just doesn't land for me the way I think it should have. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Anyway, Halloween 2018 is my number 7. Starting to get dry, man. Wish I had some drink. I didn't make anything. I was going to bring like a water bottle in here. I didn't do it. Now I feel like an idiot because it was a bad mistake. Alright, this pick right here is probably going to surprise some people that it's not even in the top 5 for me. Especially when you consider 2 other things that are in the top 5. So let's talk about number 6, Halloween 2, 1981 from Rick Rosenthal. This movie had a lot it had to do to live up to the 1978 film so many years after that movie. Like 3 years later, as a matter of fact. It was supposed to kill off the Michael Myers character and so many things. You see how that didn't work out. Rick Rosenthal really mimicked and took a lot of inspiration from John Carpenter's movie, and you could tell it felt like Halloween 1, even though the whole thing takes place in a hospital, which, in my opinion, as far as I remember, that really hadn't been done as a slasher movie yet. I could be wrong, maybe there were some things, but I don't think, to my knowledge, that there was anything done like that at the time. And I think it's a great setting, that third shift, late night, not hearing any noise in the house type of stuff. You can tell Halloween Kills took inspiration from this, of having Halloween 1 and 2 take place in the same night, even though originally the trilogy of David Gordon Green films was supposed to take place in one night. It would have been a better idea. Just saying. Halloween 2 had so much it had to do, and it worked out so great. I really like the flick. I think it has some of the best music in the franchise. I don't think it's as good as Halloween 1's music. I kind of did for like a couple of years, and then now I'm in the place of, nah, it's really not as good. Sometimes it sounds too cheap, but most of the time it sounds really solid. It's very much more of a 1980s movie, even though it's 81. It's very early on in the 80s. It has a synthwave feel to some of the music. It's really solid. If you haven't seen this film, you're missing out. It's got some great atmosphere and whatever. The biggest issue I have is the what is his name? Something Warlock. Is it David Warlock? No. What is his name? Something Warlock. The guy playing Michael Myers. It wasn't Nick Castle this time. The mask is the original mask. It had been sitting underneath what's-her-face's pillow for like 3 years. The Deborah Hill. I can never remember her name. It was underneath Deborah Hill's pillow in her house where she smoked so much. The mask had kind of changed. Dick Warlock's face. Dick Warlock, that's his name. His face is not shaped the way Nick Castle's was, so the mask didn't fit just perfectly fine. It's kind of, I don't know, Michael doesn't look right. I don't like how the neck is like skin colored and like the rest of the face is white. It's just, it looks like a bad mime or like a bad knockoff of Michael Myers. Like, remember back in the day you had like Turkish Star Wars, you know, stuff like that. Instead of Star Wars, you had the Turkish version of it. It was literally called Turkish Star Wars. If you had something like that, that's what this looks like sometimes to me. The film feels like it has kind of this Italian feel to it. Do you guys feel that way? Like it has this accent of an Italian horror movie. Not like in an art house way of something like, I don't know, like a Dario Argento movie. Nothing like that. It has this Italian flair to it. I don't know if Rick Rosenthal was taking inspiration from somewhere else I don't know about, but for me, the film looks, sounds, and works really well. I think the conclusion of this movie is really solid. Loomis should have never been able to come back after this ending, but it was what it was. I know Jamie Lee Curtis hates the fact that she spent most of this movie in a bed, kind of just knocked out. For me, I don't really care. I'm not a Jamie Lee Curtis fan, so I don't really care what Jamie Lee Curtis thinks of this movie. I said it, I'll say it again. Anyway, moving along. This movie right here, and the one after, they're probably going to piss people off the fact that they are in the top 5. Yes, this is the top 5 picks right now. My number 5 pick for me personally is Halloween 6, theatrical cut from 1995. I love it. And I think what really makes this film, even though I don't think it's a perfect movie, even though the music is amazing in the film with the rock version of the Halloween theme song with the guitar, I love it so much. But then you also have And Fools Shine On, which is like one of my favorite rock songs now. I don't know why. It's not even that great. It just fits this movie so well with the fall time look. Look at this cover for the 4K, by the way. Tell me that's not amazing. It's one of the best Michael covers ever. George P. Wilbur's look and act as Michael is amazing in this film. Sometimes the shots betray him a little bit. He doesn't look as good as he could. But most of the time, between the mask that we had not really had a good mask since, well, really Halloween 1 up to this point, it had been many years, almost 20 years at that point. I really think that, I dropped my phone again. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, phone. I'm sorry, audience. I really, really, really think that this film has way more to it that I appreciate than hate. The cult storyline for Cult of Thorn, I hate that. The Man in Black stuff, I hate that too. Paul Rudd's like a robot. There's so many problems with it. But again, I love the cast. I love Kara, or whatever her name is, the single mom. I like the little boy character, the actor even. I think he's good too. George P. Wilbur, like I said, is really good. The cinematography of the movie is really good. There's so many settings of that Halloween night. There's the plot devices like how they banned Halloween in the town of Haddonfield. How the family are living in Michael Myers' childhood home where he killed his sister. There's so many things about this that I love so much. The scene in the film that involves a character pulling a sheet off a clothesline and Michael standing there with an axe, and he swings the axe at her, is great. I love it. I love that shot. I love the gore of the blood hitting on the sheet across, I guess, behind the person that this happened to. It looks so good. I love it. I hate the Cult of Thorn storyline, but everything else about it I really, really love. I think it has so much going for it. It's such an overlooked movie, such an underrated movie in general. Maybe it doesn't deserve to be in somebody's top 5, but for me, I love it enough that I'm glad I own the 4K of it. I'm glad I own so many versions of this movie because of how good I actually think it is. Yes, even the theatrical cut's ending is very, very weak. Very weak. The whole showdown and everything, it doesn't work. But for the most part, I really like the flick. I think it has a lot to offer. Man, really wish I had a drink. Moving along to my number 4 pick on the list. This is Rob Zombie's 2009 Halloween 2, or H2 as it was called. Yes, I know it's an art house film. I hate Halloween Rob Zombie 2007. Bottom of my list, as a matter of fact. But H2 is a great flick. I really, really like it. I think it's a good movie. I think it's a well-made movie. I think Brad Dourif, Danielle Harris, and Scout Taylor Compton, and Tyler Mane bring some of the best performances I've ever seen to the Halloween franchise. Patrick Starr is in this movie. Yes, Patrick Starr from SpongeBob SquarePants. Tom Cullen from The Stand. There's so many great people in this. Richard Breaker, I think, is also in this for a small moment at the beginning of the movie. I have watched Halloween 2 so many times. I've had this Hollywood video copy for ages. For ages, man. This is the unrated cut. Of course, I also own the theatrical cut, like I said. I watched that theatrical cut, I think, last year for the first time since I saw the movie in theaters. When I went to see this movie in theaters, there was me and my mom, and then like 20 rows down there was like 3 other people, one of them being a guy that I knew from GameStop who was an asshole. And so they hated the film, my mom hated the film. I'm the only person who has liked this movie since it came out. I still think it's fantastic. I wouldn't call it a masterpiece. I see some people out there like Lost River Drive-In, who I really like his videos too, call it a masterpiece. I don't agree. I think for what it is, if you wanted to go the standalone route, this is great. I love this flick. I think it's fantastic. I love the art house flair, mainly because I'm a fan of art house, like Nicholas Winding Refn type stuff, Stanley Kubrick type of stuff. I like the dreamlike feel to it. I like the plot twists in here. I like things that we know as the audience that Laurie finds out throughout the film. I like all of those things, and I think this is probably my favorite Rob Zombie movie of all time. I like it more than Devil's Rejects, for that matter. I think kind of like Part 1, it still has that little flair of too much redneck hillbilly shit. Yes, there's way too much language in here. That's kind of annoying too. But I still think that it has so much going for it. I love that almost black and white look to it sometimes. It's just creepy. It's a scary flick. It's not trying to be immensely scary, but when it does get to those tense-filled moments, it works amazingly well. A lot of people's biggest concern is the fact that they kind of ruined Loomis in this movie. for me, just naturally, this would work as his character. I think it just would work for me how it went happen in here. I think Malcolm McDowell plays it fairly well. I just think there's so much here, but man, if you can watch the scenes in this movie with Brad Dourif and not cry, there's something wrong with you. Even my wife had stopped, and what she was doing, she's reading a book she was really into when I was watching this back in October, before Halloween Ends. It's like a month ago. I remember her distinctly stopping. We've been married for like 2 years now. She stops and she looks up and can't stop watching the scene involving Danielle Harris confronting Michael Myers in her house. And she got so sad watching this. And I'm fairly certain I caught her kind of tearing up a little bit when the Brad Dourif speech happens in the movie. It's such a great flick. I just don't have words to describe it. I am so glad that this is getting the comeuppance that it deserves, that more people love this now, that more people are inspired by it, more people like the fact that this exists. Yes, the white horse thing is stupid. Yes, Sherry Moon Zombie being involved is because she's Rob Zombie's wife. He wanted her to be in the movie. Romantically, I get it. But I love the flick as it is. I think it's a really good movie. And yes, I do like the unrated cut more than I like the theatrical cut. Both are solid, but I like this one more. They do have different endings, too. So, and not like extremely different either, like the Halloween 6 cuts. Let's move on to my Halloween 3 pick on the list. This one here, probably going to surprise people a little bit, especially after the shills come out in the comments for Halloween Ends. So, Halloween H2O was my number 3 pick. I rewatched it again this year. I pretty much watched this one every year since I bought this copy. And I will tell you, H2O gets better and better every time I watch it. I know most of the film kind of sucks because it's not in Haddonfield. It's in California, of all things. It's at a private school. But how many films have you seen that took place as a slasher film or a horror film in a private school? I haven't really seen many. I've seen like maybe 1 or 2 in my entire life out of all the films I've watched. I love what they did with this. And the more after seeing 2018 Kills and Ends, and how Ends kind of ruined those movies for me, I love this. I think this is fantastic. I think it just gets better with age. Yes, it's got a dumb title. Even as a celebratory title, if you're supposed to pronounce it H20, even at that point, it still to me is better than most of the Halloween films. I love it. I came around on this so much more over the years. I think it's such a fun, crazy film. I like the characters. I like Josh Hartnett. I like Jamie Lee Curtis being his mom. I think the stuff they did with Jamie here seems a lot more natural to me with what happened in that first film and the second film. It's sad that this is the one that didn't have Donald Pleasance, because this is the really good one, the best one probably in years, as much as I like 6. They paid tribute to him. I'm really glad about that. It has so much going for it. It's so well made, so well shot. The music isn't anywhere as good as Halloween 6. Let me tell you that. It fits this film, but this orchestral feel, it does 2 things. It's disappointing because I love the rock versions of the song from Halloween 6 theatrical cut. But it also brings an atmosphere with this orchestral feel. When you see the leaves blowing down the street, or you see like Josh Hartnett sneaking out of the public school zone area, whatever, to go downtown to go buy beer and stuff, when he's on the street and he and his friend are just wandering and whatever, talking. It brings this feeling and this atmosphere to this movie that builds and builds and builds. And when you get to the third act of this film, after like an hour and 10 minutes of nothing really happening, you get some crazy, great Michael Myers stuff, some really solid kills. Nothing compared to like Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, but still good stuff. Still really fun stuff in my opinion. I love it. I think it's a very well-made film. It's one of the best for me. It just gets better every time I watch it, like I said. I think it's really great. And I even like the documentary in this 4K box set. Really good. Yeah, it has its issues. Michael, for example, you can see his eyes. Instead of just black, you can see his eyes. It's a big no-no. It's a big no-no. Don't do that. But they did it here. It's kind of, I don't know. The guy that plays Michael here, one of the best of the franchise. Really good. Up there with George P. Wilbur for me. Up there with Nick Castle for me. He's great. I really think he deserved more performances. You don't really see any interviews with him anywhere. Maybe online somewhere on YouTube, I don't really know, but like when it comes to like the box sets here and stuff, you don't really see this guy pop up that often, which is kind of a shame. Anyway, moving along to the final 2. What do you think it's going to be? Well, I'm kind of having a moment right now where I'm having to think What do I really think about this? Do I want to switch these out? These can be switched out at all times. You guys probably feel the same way I feel about this. But I'm kind of debating right now on what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to stick with my regular old idea that I had. I'm a very nostalgic person, as you guys know. I have a lot of problems with nostalgia, where I can't let things go and I get so into whatever. If it's something that I grew up on, I can't help but love it deeply. So this kind of affects my top two. It affects a lot of my list, but especially my top two. Even though I kind of saw technically both of these movies while I was growing up, my number 2 pick is Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. This is probably the best made of the franchise. Let me be honest with you. I think it is amazing. I think Tommy Lee Wallace is a director that no one gave credit to. He is amazing. He's so good. I would argue in some cases he might be better than John Carpenter. That's just my opinion. He made one hell of a movie here. And the fact that people hated it so much, and again, people have proven this like Christian Hannah Horror, that the movie was advertised a lot of the time, not in the trailers, not or anything like that, but in like posters from Texas and stuff. It was advertised as Halloween 3. And it's a shame, because the movie's not trying to be Halloween 3. It was the beginning of an anthology series that wasn't advertised that way. Halloween 3, to me, is iconic, in every sense of the word. It's probably one of the most iconic films in the entire franchise of Halloween. Has some of the most iconic moments ever. You have Tom Atkins in here. He's amazing. The whole investigation he goes on about these masks at this mask company, Silver Shamrock, is fantastic. The town that Silver Shamrock kind of took over is really interesting. I just love all of it. I love the main villain here. I think he's amazing. The performance is amazing. The special effects are so good here. Probably the best of the entire franchise. Yes, this has a little bit of a magic mixed with science fiction feel to the movie, but tell me it doesn't work. Tell me it doesn't just make this movie so much more special, so much more fitting, so much more powerful and crazy. There is so much to be said about how great Halloween 3 is. The music is probably the best of the whole franchise, if I'm being honest with you. It might be my number 1 for that. I don't know yet. But it is absolutely phenomenal. And it probably would have been better if you'd had like the actual Halloween theme song in the movie, even though there's a little bit of that. But if it had been the main theme song, which I'm kind of glad we didn't do that. There are so many things about this film that should be annoying, like these Silver Shamrock commercials played throughout the film. And yet it's not. It just works. Everything about it works. There is not a single bad thing I could say about this movie. I think the pacing is amazing. I think the writing is fantastic. I think that most of it works so well. There's a couple of things I'm confused about in the story itself. It's mostly about the creators of the film trying to give you some surprises. But if you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about probably. I love it, though. I think it is absolutely 100% a classic. I think it is so damn good. If you've not seen Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, or you're one of those people who hate it so deeply from back in the day, you're missing out. You need to take out time and watch this. I saw it for the first time years ago when I was a kid on AMC. I hadn't seen this one. I had heard that Michael Myers wasn't in it, but I wanted to see it just to see what they did anyway. And I loved it. I probably still have a VHS copy of this somewhere around where we had taped it off the TV. In like 2005, 2007, somewhere around in there. This movie, I'm glad people are coming around to it, just like they are with H2. But this movie deserves it more than H2 does, in my opinion. This is such a great flick. And all the bonus stuff on here, oh my god, there's so much good stuff on here. Oh, man. I need a drink. I've said so much. Moving along to my, number 1 pick. Man, it must be really dry outside, too, for my throat to be this bad. What time is it? 1:30. Not bad. So, my number 1 pick here. It is a movie that I've seen so many times. Over and over and over again. So many times. This movie is very special to me. It's very special to many of you. It is the one that started the whole franchise, and that would be John Carpenter's 1978 classic, Halloween. Now, I love this 4K cover. I love the original cover. I have a lot of copies of this movie, probably 4 or 5 copies of this original movie. This set here was phenomenal. I'll tell you one thing, I'm not a 4K guy, but watching this for the first time on 4K Ultra HD, watching this and seeing all the details of things that I never could see on any copy of this movie I ever owned, this is the best scan I've ever seen of Halloween. And I will stand by that deeply because it was beautiful. It was like nothing I've ever seen in my life. You have no idea how beautiful this movie can be until you watch it here. It made me appreciate the film all over again. I've seen this film probably 30 or 40 times. My mom and I have watched this so much. Back in the day, we would have weekends during the summer where we just felt like watching Halloween on a Saturday or a Sunday. Sometimes both. We would do it on Saturday and Sunday. We would just sit down at like lunchtime or dinner time or whatever, just stay in the house for the weekend or whatever, watching movies. We'd put this on. I would eat regular Doritos on a sandwich with just like a cheese slice and bread, and then have some Chef Boyardee ravioli with it. And that happened all the time. I mean that. That is like the ultimate thing. When I think about this movie, I always think about that and those memories. Mom, if you're watching this, I love you deeply. This movie is so good. It's so good. Now, I think, personally, that Halloween 3 is better made. I think the music might be better. This is iconic. This is a great flick. I have more nostalgia, and therefore more love in my heart for it than I do Halloween 3, I think. It kind of depends on what day we're talking about them. But I love it so much. It's such a great flick. It's one of those things for me that I don't know how you could ever even make a series out of this movie. Everything about it's really good. I'm not obsessed with like Jamie Lee Curtis, the girl who played Annie, PJ Soles. I'm not really obsessed with all of them. I think they do fine for what they're doing at this time in 1978 for this movie. Nothing bad at all. No insult there. But I don't connect to the characters as much as I do just liking the stalking stuff, liking Michael doing his thing, the atmosphere of the movie. A lot of the love for this movie, I think, comes from the directing stuff, the camera work. All of those things are what made this film stand out so much and be so special all the way until today in 2022. The movie is just amazing. It's very well made. The finale is great. You can't beat the third act of this movie, but a lot of the time it's a little too slow. I do think that. I do agree with people nowadays who say that. I understand that people think that it's, all people can't handle slow burn. That's bullshit. A lot of it's not slow burn. A lot of it is just like Annie doing laundry and stuff. There's a lot of moments like that. You can say whatever you want if you're a massive fan like myself. I still feel like those things do drag the film down a little bit. Trying to drag it to an hour and a half is a bit much. Now, I will say this. When I bought this set, I got to see the TV version for the first time, really. And the extra scenes are phenomenal. So if you want to see the extra stuff, you can either look at it on YouTube or you should just buy this set and watch them here. It's worth every dollar. I mean it. I will tell you this. There is nothing like the Halloween franchise, but there's not been really anything like it since this movie. Halloween 3, as great as it is, how it might or might not be best, better, worst, I don't know, compared to this movie. But say what you will, that was its own form of iconic. This is its own form of iconic, and I don't think many things in this franchise have ever come close to how good this movie was. Nick Castle is amazing as Michael Myers. He just takes that role, and there's just something about how he plays it, something about how spooky the mask and stuff looks. I'd never realized until this time how you don't really see Michael's face until much later on. Not like his face, like his mask face. You don't really get a great look at it until like the Annie scene in the car. There are so many things about it that have been copied over and over again that the movie itself hasn't had the kind of love that it deserved in recent years from newer fans, from people who have never seen the film. For whatever reason, if you're watching this video and you haven't seen Halloween 1978, you're missing out. You need to take out the time and go check it out. And if you have seen the film, I hope that this list was a surprise for you, for me, because I told you guys when I did my reviews for them early in October that it was going to be like no list you'd ever seen. Because as I watch them again every year, they kind of change places, move around a little bit for me, and that happens. So anyway, that is my list for the Halloween franchise. All technically 14 movies, even though there's only really 13. Technically all 14, including the producer's cut. What do you think about all of these? Put your thoughts and comments down below, folks. What do you think about my picks? I'd love to hear about that, too. What are your lists of worst to best? I'd love to hear all that down below, too, in some comments. Thank you guys for watching. I'm sorry for a long, drawn-out video of me droning on. I just wanted to make sure I covered everything I wanted to say about these and really finalize it. Now that we won't have a Michael Myers film for probably a while, if I had to bet. Probably 5 years at minimum. Well, maybe 2 years at minimum, depending on how Hollywood works and what they're going to do. Anyway, what'd you guys think of all this stuff? Let me know your thoughts and comments down below again. Thank you for watching, guys. God bless you all. I'm sorry I'm so dry, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's just, I need some drink. As soon as I finish this, I'm going in there to the sink and getting some water. Anyway, thank you guys. God bless you all. Happy Halloween, even though it's late. Happy Thanksgiving, since we're closer to that now. Sorry for the delay on this. Anyway, thank you guys. God bless you. Goodbye.